What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of The Breakdown presented by 9NINE2. Now, today we're going to be going over 3 battles from round 7 of Formula Drift Elevated, Utah. Now, the 3 battles we will be going over are Nick Novak going against Frederick Osbo, Nick Novak again going against James Dean, and we're going to finish it off with going over the battle between Dylan Hughes and Matt Field. We had a little bit of that bumper car action there. We're just going to kind of walk over it and kind of explain what was going through there. All right, starting off with the first battle that we're going to review is Nick Novak against Frederick Osbo. Now, Nick Novak is in the lead. Osbo is in the chase. Going into outside zone 1, inner clip. Good proximity by our drivers here. Transition goes into outside zone 3. Heavy on the throttle. Osbo hot on his tail. You can see Novak doing a really good job. Transition goes in. Dive by Osbo. Look at that dive. Precision. That is serious. It just goes to show you there's a lot of respect. And there's just a lot of respect and a lot of confidence that I think a lot of these drivers are starting to have with Nick Novak. I usually see battles between Osbo and James Dean like this, but the confidence that you can see that Osbo has to just really starting to throw it in there and apply pressure to the lead here is great. You can see good transition. Nick does a really good job in the lead, stays into the zone, stays committed, fast. You can see a good transition by Osbo. Osbo does a really good job by diving, calculating that in, massaging, making sure he stays into play. That's fantastic. The reason we're able to enjoy this amazing chase is because we're seeing an amazing lead. Nick Novak doing a really good job doing everything that the judges are asking from the lead driver, making sure he leaves the pocket and the door wide open for the chase, which now allows us to focus on the chase driver and make sure that he's able to get as close proximity as possible. Now we're going to switch it around here, and we're going to have Osbo in the lead. Okay, so Osbo is in the lead now. Novak is in the chase. Osbo goes for the initiation, goes into outside zone 1. You can see, misses the inner clip, goes into outside zone 2, transition to outside zone 3. Novak applying the pressure. Osbo staying on throttle, staying right where he needs to be. Novak doing a good job of proximity. Good transition, times the transition well. Also goes for the dime. Novak goes for the dive, gets right into the pocket as well too. And Osbo doing what he needs to do in the lead. Fantastic. Again, the reason we were able to enjoy these chase runs from both drivers now is because the lead driver did what they needed to do, which was make sure they left the door wide open, make sure they did everything they needed to do so we can now focus on the chase. You can see the initiation comes through. Good job by Osbo. You can see there, misses out the inner clip, goes into outside zone 2. Transition goes through. Good synchronization by Novak. Gets right into the pocket, starts to light off, gets right where he needs to be. Proximity is great. Knocks on his door a little bit. Transition comes through. Good transition. Goes for the dive. Osbo doing everything he needs to do in outside zone 4. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Again, Novak is definitely a force to be reckoned with. You can see his car is fast. It keeps up. Good transition. It's just looking good. Osbo does everything he needs to do in the lead. Leaves the door completely wide open and says, all right, you want to try to follow me? Let's see if you can keep up. And you can see Novak is definitely stepping up to the plate, dives in, rotates the car a little bit, gets right into the pocket all the way to the end. That is fantastic job. Fantastic job. Let's look at the side-by-side to see what differences we can see and go from there, so we can give you a decision on why the judges went the way they did. Now going into the side-by-side, transition comes through. We do see that Novak does drop a tire a little bit in the beginning part of outside zone 1, and then going into the lead for Osbo, you can see that he misses the inner clip. And then from this point forward, it's just the leads are doing exactly what they need to do. Arguably, maybe one has more angle better in some places, and then it kind of goes back and forth as we go through. But we're able to sit here and really enjoy the battles because both of the drivers are doing such an amazing job in the lead. But what stuck out for me was that we had an error by Novak in the lead in outside zone 1. We had an error from Osbo in the lead from the inner clip. Then the rest of the battle, they were pretty much even when it comes to the lead portion of the responsibility of the drivers. we were able to look into the chase portion. And what sticks out for me here is the proximity and the way Novak has been able to just stay there, adapt to the car, transition very well, stay into the pocket. The proximity was absolutely amazing. Really sticks out for me. You can see here, in some parts you can argue, but I think at the specifically where it sticks out the most is in outside zone 3, where you can see Nick Novak does his amazing job, get right where he needs to be, gets into the pocket, shows his presence, knocks on the door a little bit, taking all of that considered. Let's see what the judges said. I ended up going with Nick Novak. Brian Egger ended up going one more time, and Vernon ended up going with Nick Novak. Now, I can totally see where Brian Egger ended up going one more time. To be honest with you, I was a little bit on the fence a little bit. But as with all the battles, this is a judge sport. There's 3 judges that look at the battle. They take everything in consideration and they come up with their own independent decision. In this case, I ended up feeling that there was enough on the table and just enough by Nick Novak in order to edge Osbo out. For Brian Egger, he felt like there was enough to lean it for there to be a one more time and justified it. And then for Vernon, he also felt the same way, that Novak did just what he needed to do. And again, I think what we really need to make sure that stands out in this battle, it's just that more so that this battle we were able to enjoy the battle between Nick Novak and Frederick Oswald because both drivers understood, and there's a lot of respect for one another, that they need to make sure they put a really good lead in order for there to be a good chase. And that's exactly what we got in this battle. A battle where we're able to focus on the chases, and the chases were able to take center stage because all the other responsibilities were taken care of. So Nick Novak ends up getting the win in this case. Let's move on to the next battle, which is James Dean against Nick Novak. This is the first battle where the decision ended up going one more time. We're going to go over this. There was a lot of why that ended up going one more time. I felt one driver had this. I've heard some other people say Novak had that. So we're going to review the battle and kind of give you a little bit of a breakdown of why we ended up going the way we did unanimously one more time, all 3 judges in this battle. All right. So we have James Dean in the lead, Novak in the chase. The initiation goes into outside zone 1, inner clip. You can see Novak takes out the inner clip. Oh, you can see a tire was dropped by Dean in outside zone 2. Good job getting it. Oh, pours a little bit more angle to stay into the zone. Novak does a good job of getting close proximity. Goes for the dive. Good calculated dive going all the way to the end of outside zone 4. Novak is serious, bro. Guys, you guys can't sleep on my homie over here, bro. Like, this dude is amazing. He's amazing. And then E46. Initiation goes into outside zone 1. You can see Novak gets a little bit on the inside, takes the clip out. You can see a tire drop by James Dean. Goes into outside zone 3. Comes out of the zone a little bit. Gets back into the zone with a little bit of adjustment. Novak does a really good job of getting close proximity there. Good job by Novak calculating the dive to get right into the pocket. You can see James shallows up a little bit, gets back into the zone. Looking real good. Real good. You can see another angle here outside zone 2. You can see the tire drop there. Good job of going into outside zone 3. Comes out a little bit. Goes back in. Novak does a good job of diving into the pocket, showing proximity. Here comes a dive for Novak. Couple adjustments there by James Dean. Shallows up a little bit. Gets back into the pocket. I love how these guys just have so much respect for one another. You can see there is some touching. There is some close calls going through, but they're just staying in it. Staying in it to the end there. So we have Nick Novak in the lead, James Dean in the chase. Here comes the initiation, goes into outside zone 1. Dean hot on his tail. Novak is into outside zone 2 transition. You can see Dean takes a shallow line, cuts a good portion of outside zone 3 out. Novak stays into the zone, massages a little bit. Looks like he gets out a little bit too. Transition goes into outside zone 4. Shallows up a bit as well too. Dean does a good job of diving right into the pocket there, just like Novak did when he was in the chase. Really good job there. Let's look at the replay. All right, going into the replay here. Novak goes for the initiation, gets into outside zone 1, gets the inner clip, stays inside of the box in outside zone 2. You can see comes out of outside zone 3 a little bit. Dean dealing with his own issues, taking a really different line, cuts the line a good bit. Transition goes through. Good dive, adjusts a little bit, gets back into the pocket. No back as well too. Gets into the zone, kind of comes out a little bit, shallows up. Here's a different point of view. Good outside zone 1. Good inner clip. Stays into the zone at outside zone 2. Transition. Now you can see here, Dean goes really on the inside, has to shallow up a good bit to get back over. Dives back into the pocket as well too. You can see no back massages. So you can see no back massages his way back into the zone. Dean does the same thing when he was in the lead. But what stands out to me is a little bit better proximity and Novak at that portion. Goes in for the dive, shallows up a little bit. Nick Novak, he goes in for a little bit of the dive, massages, comes it back through, adjusts all the way to the end. Really good job by both drivers. Going into outside zone 1, we have the initiation. Both drivers get into the zone. Good proximity by both drivers. RU1 comes out a little bit early, has a little bit more angle. One has shallower angle and then comes out. I have them pretty much at a draw for the beginning portion of outside, or for the beginning of it, which is outside zone 1. I have them as a draw. Going into the inner clip, both drivers do a good job in the lead to make sure they get the inner clip. In the chase, you can see that Nick Novak is heavy on the inside, even to the point where he takes out that inner clip cone that's out there. So all things considered, in inner clip 1, I'm giving it to James Dean. Going into outside zone 2. Now, going into outside zone 2, we can clearly see James Dean does drop a tire in outside zone 2, but he has really good proximity in the chase. Nick Novak does a really good job of filling outside zone 2, but he has really bad proximity in the chase because of the line cut that he did on the inner clip. So all things considered, going into outside zone 1, I actually have them as a draw. So we have one draw, one for James Dean. Now going into outside zone 3. Really good job by both drivers. Carrying good angles, setting themselves up really good to get into the zone. Really good there. The difference is here, you can see a little bit better angle and proximity than James Dean in comparison. Now, both of these drivers by no means are doing a great job in the chase right now, but in comparison, Novak is doing a better job. You can see here, James Dean has to cut the line substantially to get through, to get proximity. You can see both drivers in the lead do come out of the box, come out of the zone. They make their adjustments to get back into the zone, and then we can see they start making adjustments in order to get better proximity, where I feel Novak did a better job in that aspect. Going into outside zone 4, you can see a really good dive by Dean coming in a little bit on the inside. Novak does a good job of finding that pocket as well too. You can see Dean shallows up a little bit in the lead. You can see Novak does the same. They do a fantastic job readjusting their cars, getting right back into the pocket. You see an adjustment there by Dean. Really good job, and keeping proximity to the end. So in outside zone 3, with all things considered there, I think at the very end where Novak did a better job was keeping proximity. I ended up giving outside zone 3 to Novak. And then going into outside zone 4, with all things considered and the adjustments that they made, whether it's in the front or in the chase, I ended up having a draw as well. So I ended up having outside zone 1 as a draw, inner clip 1 is James Dean, outer zone 2 as a draw, outside zone 3 as Nick Novak, and outside zone 4 as a draw. So that's where I ended up going. I can understand how a lot of people were maybe on their fence a little bit on where everything was going to go with that. Wanted to make sure we gave a good breakdown on this to kind of explain where I ended up seeing and the others judges saying. You can see it was unanimous. Everybody agreed that it was going to be a one more time, where they ended up going and duking it out, and James ultimately ended up getting the win. So hope that cleared up things a little bit for you guys. Moving on to the highlight of this is the monster truck event that is Matt Field and Dylan Hughes. All right, so the last battle that we're going to be reviewing is the roller coaster ride that was the battle between Matt Field and Dylan Hughes. Let's watch the first half of this battle, and we'll kind of just unravel it a little bit. All right, going for the initiation, going into outside zone 1. Good inner clip. You can see Dylan hot on his tail. Transition going into outside zone 3. Dylan goes for the dive. A little bit of a nudge there. And whoa. and we go for a ride. Now we're going to watch the replay a little bit and kind of go over what we saw as judges when we were up there seeing everything unfold. We do see that Dylan has initial bump in the chase. We feel that Matfield did a really good job of adapting to that little bit of a nudge. And then you can see another surge by Dylan Hughes to get back into the pocket once everything looked okay. Once he got in, it looks like the driver front made contact with the passenger front of Matfield, which kind of catapulted him on top. So we're going to go over it again just so you guys can see. Insane. Look at that. I mean, just goes to show you. Look at the staff, everyone going in there, checking all the cars out. You can see that there's nothing but love there between Dylan Hughes and Matt Field. I'm sure they're going over what happened. Looks like Matt Fields is explaining what he saw there. He kind of gave us a little rundown on what he saw too, which was just pretty much underneath of Dylan Hughes' car the entire time. Let's get into a replay here, see if we can see it again. All right, running it back here. You can see the initiation. Good job by Matt Field. Good job by Dylan Hughes getting right into the pocket, getting nice and close. Transition comes through. You can see that Dylan Hughes does a really good job staying right where he needs to be. Starts to dive in a little bit. You can see maybe that's a little bit where the first nudge happened. And then you can see here, once we get on, it looks like front tire to front tire. This is a little bit far away. We'll see if we can get a closer look from a different point of view. There you go. You can see. Now here, we can see the initial first nudge is going to happen again. Nothing malicious, nothing intentional, just good, hard drifting. First little nudge goes in. Good job by Matt Field, in my opinion, keeping his composure, staying on throttle, not just, flopping or anything like that, because then it would have been left into the judges' hands in order to kind of decipher what happened there. Little bump happened. Matt Field stays in it. He's like, I'm going to keep on going. You can see Dylan gives him a little bit more space, but he's going to have to angle up because he knows that's what we want. Goes in, and as a little bit more angle is getting poured on here, you can see the front tire contact, and he goes over and on top of him goes for a ride, rodeo style. Insane. Obviously, now we know the outcome. Everybody was okay. Thankfully, these guys kept their composure. Everything was good. Now we can see here, first initial bump goes in. You see it kind of locks up Matt Field's front wheels a little bit. But you see Matt Field does a good job getting back, keeping his composure. You can see right there. Gets on the front wheels. Dylan Hughes seems like he's maybe tried to pendulum this one to get his car at a little bit more angle. Comes off, gets a little bit more grip, starts climbing up the front tires and gets on top of them. And they go for a ride there. Now, as we're assessing the situation, obviously it's up to us to see who we're going to place blame on. And there was a lot of people that may have looked at it different ways. Ultimately, the way I'm explaining there is how we looked at it. We saw the initial hit. We saw that kind of backed off a little bit. And then we saw he surged a little bit more, caught the front contact of the front wheels. Good transitions here. And again, Dylan Hughes is doing an amazing job. A fantastic job. Comes in, closed the proximity. That's where the first bump happens. Matt Field, good job, stays on throttle, keeps it going. Then we can see here, climbs up the front of Matt Field. We looked through that whole battle. We ended up putting the blame on Dylan Hughes when it came to this incident. Obviously, we're just pleased that everybody walked away. No problems other than some cosmetic stuff wrong with their vehicle. But look at that hood going. So pretty insane stuff there. But obviously, it's not like we have a lot of these situations. So a lot of people are just wondering how we ended up viewing that. So based off of what I just explained, we saw the first initial bump. We saw Matt Field stay in it. We saw another surge come from Dylan Hughes. Again, nothing malicious, nothing but respect. Gets in, gets a little close, climbs the front wheel, goes on over him. They both go off track. We have to sit there and say who's going to be at fault. And in this case, respectfully, Dylan Hughes was at fault here. So with this all going on, obviously they needed to go do some cleanup, make sure everything was good. So right now there is a deficit going into the second half of the battle, which was Dylan Hughes was at fault. So going into the second half of the battle now, we have
even though heat wave is off the car, it's still on his face.
Dylan Hughes and Matt Field again. Matt Field is going to be given a chase here. You can see his car does look like it's been through a lot of battles. They did what they needed to do. His car definitely looks like it went through war. They did what they needed to do to make sure everything was good again, so they can at least finish this. That was only the first half of the battle, which was what we saw. This is going to be the second half of the battle, with Dylan Hughes being at a deficit here, being the one at fault for the battle. So the main reason was to go over that battle, see what ended up happening, why we ended up going with the fault with Dylan Hughes, because believe it or not, it wasn't clear dry to some people. The initiation goes through. You can see Matt Field in this case just has to stay in it in some aspect, keep on drifting. You can see his car may not be reacting as well as it normally does, and it could just be due to last minute repairs that they were doing. Transition goes through, goes into outside zone 4. Again, huge deficit here because the blame goes on Dylan Hughes, but Dylan Hughes, let's just give him a round of applause for a really good lead line. Really good lead line as well, too.
Yeah, always frustrating when you see after an incident like that, the driver at fault come back and lay down something super clean.
You can see our good lead line. Dylan Hughes goes in, drops a 1 tire in outside zone 2. Outside of that, looks a really good job. Stays into outside zone 3. Does a little bit of an adjustment there. Matfield does a good job in the chase, keeping his composure, knowing he doesn't have to apply terribly too much pressure at all. And you can see as they round it out, because of the deficit that Dylan Hughes has from the first half of the battle with the accident, and luckily again everybody came out fine, but the blame ended up having to go on someone, and it went with Dylan Hughes. And then with that having a huge deficit going into this second half of the battle, even though Dylan Hughes did everything he needed to do in the lead, which was to put on a really good lead line, leave the pocket open, it was just too much of a deficit, and ultimately Matt Field ends up moving on in this battle here.
And he did everything he could, but let's make it official. Slide him left for Matt Field and right for Hughes, and Matt Field unanimously gets the
unanimously all the way through. You can see Matt Fields end up getting the win here. Again, we just wanted to go over that battle because there was a little confusion. A lot of people say, hey, could have went this way. What if the judges saw it this or they saw it like that? What if is there a world where it was viewed that Matt Field spun on his own, or there was a lot of things, and we just wanted to give a little clarity since we do understand that this was a very big highlight portion of the day, where it's not something like we see something like this happen all the time. But ultimately, we went through the battle. We ended up putting the blame on Dylan. We ended up seeing the second half of the battle where Matt Fields ended up getting the win, and that's how that third battle ended up getting its result. So I hope you guys enjoyed the 3 battles that we ended up going over from Utah. Make sure you stay tuned because we're going to be ending this season at Long Beach too. And I'm super excited. It's a new layout. First time I'm going there, obviously. Everyone's going there. It's just really just excited to go see this thing go down. I've seen all the videos. I've seen all the sneak peeks and stuff like that. Contrary to popular belief, I don't really know as much as everybody else either. So I'm really excited to see how everything's going to unfold. And to see everything battle on the main stage. Now, I do understand Dean is already the champion, but second place is going to be something that we want to see go down, and I'm sure all those drivers are hungry in order to get, at least the ones that have a chance in order to go get it. So I will see you guys on the next episode of The Breakdown.